One. And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is Chris Loeffler, who's the CEO of Caliber. Ticker symbol is CWD that trades on the NASDAQ. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to the Smart Money Circle.
Thank you, Adam. I hope to add some value to the smart money circle today. So looking forward to it.
Well, I'm sure you will. All right, Chris, first question for you is please tell us your story and how you got to where you are today.
My story is less interesting to me, but hopefully interesting to your audience. I started actually in the early days of growing up in a military family. I lived kind of East Coast, West Coast, all over the world. I lived in Singapore for a little while, lived in Spain for a little bit. My dad was in the Navy for 35 years, retired as a Rear Admiral, and my mom was basically a diplomat. So we got a lot of chances to see different parts and places of the world. And the thing that taught me was the value of everybody. I got a chance to be in the room with, multi-billionaires and with people all up and down the scale at an early age and realize that people are people. Everybody has equal value and interesting stories. So I'm just generally interested and curious about people. And then from a business perspective, I went to school for accounting, became an accountant or an auditor at PricewaterhouseCoopers, had an illustrious 3.5 year career, left that to become a real estate investor and entrepreneur. In late 2008, we opened a business that became Caliber that was buying foreclosure properties on the ground floor at the live auctions 5 days a week, multiple times a day in Phoenix, Arizona, which was sort of like the epicenter of the foreclosure crisis in America in that period of time. So we learned real estate through the School of Hard Knocks, spent a lot of time in that process building what is the business that I built today, which is now a 16-year-old company. We manage about 3.2 billion in managed assets. The company is essentially designed to help investors invest in, develop, and manage real estate and build wealth through that process. And it's a phenomenal company. I love doing what I do. I love helping investors, and I love the creative process that comes with every deal that we do.
I love that. So let's talk about the business, some of the competitive advantages, please. I know you said to me before that you're kind of like BlackRock, but a mini version of that. So please let the audience know everything, all the latest and greatest and the fun things you do.
Yeah, you know what? It's a hell of a comparison to compare yourself to Blackstone. We certainly don't, in any way, shape, or form, try to imply that we're the same business or that we're even close to the same size and scale. But their business model is they use non-dilutive capital that they raise into funds, invest it to grow the value of their business over time through recurring fees and through performance fees. And Caliber basically does the same thing, where Blackstone creates a multi-billion-dollar fund, investing in multi-hundred-million-dollar assets and raising capital from the largest institutions in the world. Caliber creates a $200 million real estate fund, investing in boutique $5 to $50 million assets and investing on behalf of high net worth, ultra high net worth investors, investment advisors, family offices, and smaller institutions. So what I would call a middle market Blackstone, if Blackstone only did real estate investing, that's kind of the comparison, but really just on a business model standpoint, certainly not on a size, scale, and reputation yet.
Understood. I said BlackRock, I meant Blackstone. So thank you for clarifying. So let's talk about some timeless advice. Thank you for the introduction with you and the company. I love the business model. It's very simple. People can get it. Let's talk about timeless advice, please. How do you handle risk, and what are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management?
First thing for me when it comes to risk is to talk about it openly, especially when we're facing a risk. Like, hey, I'm afraid we might go out of business if this happens, or I'm afraid we might lose half of our investor capital if this doesn't happen. I think that's really important. I think a lot of times, with risk, people don't just put it on the table, because the second you put it on the table, you take away the power, and then you can actually manage the risk. So that's my trick. I don't know if that's that insightful compared to any of your other guests, but that's what I do.
No, that's very helpful. A lot of people say different ways of handling risk. Some people measure risk, but I like your point of view. Just tackle it, just address it, just deal with it. And
I
this
don't,
way
I
you
don't, I'm not going to get the value out of my team if I don't like pop the bubble first and then let us like kind of look at the train wreck that's sitting on the table and then figure out how to manage that particular risk. And that's what we do all day in investing is, you start out with this business plan that looks beautiful on a pro forma, and the moment you close, it starts changing.
right, 100%. Okay, let's talk about timeless lessons you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with the audience, please.
I have a couple. So the first lesson I ever learned in business was no matter how good your business model is, and no matter how good your timing is and the opportunity is, if you work with the wrong people early on, they'll find a way to screw it up, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. I thought I was super smart. I had an early partner. He was smarter than I was at finding ways to screw up our business, and so I've learned the value of people kind of early on. And then the second thing I'd share with you is um, over the course of my business career, I found that every time I let go of the fear of tomorrow, the business improved. So I still remember laying in my one bedroom condo, unable to know how I'm going to pay payroll in 24 hours, and just saying, well, there's nothing I can do about it tonight. And I went to bed, it's in God's hands. Woke up the next morning and revenue walked in the door that we didn't know was going to come in. So it's you always want to have a really well thought out and detailed plan. But I think most entrepreneurs, if you learn to let go and trust the process, sometimes you can see a lot of value come out of that.
Yeah, I love that. How about the other side of the question, timeless mistakes?
Oh God. I don't know if we have enough time for that. Don't buy a hotel in Alaska is the first timeless mistake. Small hotels is where capital goes to die. I've got a lot. So
Take your time with them. We will take them all with a please and thank you. There's no rush at all.
think that the first mistake that I will begrudgingly admit to is that you can only get so far being the smartest guy in the room. And at some point in time, you're capped in your ability and you start to actually see that ability go downhill. So I'm blessed and cursed with being a smart guy. And that comes with, sometimes losing track of the value of the team around me. I've had to learn how to tackle that. So if you're smart and capable and driven and you've got all the answers, you'll only get so far, I think. And I'd say a second mistake that I learned is um, business changes rapidly. Customers' expectations change extremely rapidly. In one point in time in our business, our customers were just happy to hear from us once a year. And then we grew a little bit and they expected us to basically look and feel like Charles Schwab. And it was amazing how quickly their expectations will change. So pay close attention to what your customers' expectations are, and especially how they're changing. Those are the two things that I think most recently have affected me.
I love that. That's very, very important because you've got to evolve, right? So Darwin said it's not the strongest that survive, it's the ones that can adapt the fastest and evolve. So I love what you're saying here. So next question for you, Chris. What about leadership? What are some lessons you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with the audience, please?
Um, the first thing you'll hear in the hallways of Caliber is that leaders aren't allowed to have a bad day. So I tell all my leaders when they walk in the door, they're having a good day. And when they leave, they're having a good day. And whatever else happens in life, that's not allowable. So I think it's important to know that. It's good to be authentic. It's good to be real with your team and, be where you are, so to speak. But if you're in the role of leadership, it's your job to lead. And that means you're coming in every day, having a good day and finding a path forward. I'd say the second thing I look for in leadership and I look to provide in leadership is a level of authenticity that creates trust quickly. If I find leaders that can do that, they seem to be successful in any environment. So those are things I look for.
Love that. How about adversity? How do you handle adversity, and what are some obstacles you had to overcome along the way?
Yeah, so in building a business like this, I basically face similar regulations to a Blackstone, but I'm less than 1/100th of the size. So the adversity of the complexity and the cost to build a high quality institutional grade investment management infrastructure to invest in smaller assets and smaller funds is very difficult. Being that we are trying to do this for 100 years, not 5 years, we've been building for the future. The adversity around that is just how do you capitalize it? How do you spend before you know that the revenue is going to come in? How do you deal with the fact that, when you're a more thinly capitalized, smaller company trying to build something big, any mistake can kind of push you off the path. How have I dealt with it? I believe that the only way you fail in business is you stop. So
I like that a lot.
there's a
Great.
million ways to succeed in business. I could give you 50 off the top of my head, but there's only one way to fail, and it's to stop trying. And so, for better or for worse, I'm stubborn and I'm unwilling to fail, and I just keep going and keep working the way to find a path forward. And that's found us success so far, and hopefully we'll find a success in the future.
No, I love that. Okay, final question for you, Chris. What is the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or your 30-year-old self?
Um, it's probably easier to talk to my 30-year-old self than it is to the giant, group that is the audience. I think I would I think I would go back to my 30-year-old self, which wasn't that long ago, only a decade ago, and remind myself that a little more that the value is in the journey and not the destination. As I've gotten older and had kids, I've come to realize that more so. But I think every entrepreneur is out there trying to get to a point, get to an objective or a goal or whatever the case may be. And everybody around you that's on your team just wants to enjoy the ride. So make sure you're enjoying it with them.
Love that. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time, all the success in the world, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.